Okay, so hi guys, my name is Gonçalo Cabrita. I'm the CEO here at Coolfarm. Welcome to our labs here in Portugal.
And I'm Sabrina. I'm the biologist that tests the system in the labs, and I hope you enjoy the tour. We have 3 aims on the labs. So we test how the system works, all the software that is upgraded and all that sort of testing side of Coolfarm is tested here first. Then from here goes to our collaborations, and then test it again and see if everything is working properly, and from then it goes to the sales as a final version of it. So here is the first test of everything. So if it breaks down, it screws up only here. Okay. So I normally work on a future version than most people are aware of. We have also the design here, so that because we have visits, like you here, so we have visits and we can explain that this is a full circle and test of the entire system as a whole. Coolfarm controls the entire system, so we have all the tanks, different greenhouses simulation, different systems like NFT or the trays, ebb and flow and so on. We test different ones. The tanks, the usual deal with these sort of hydroponic systems. We have it on this. So the idea is that we can see the schematics here of how we build it up. Yes. So if we move to the labs, you can see a couple of pictures of 2 of our collaborations. One of them is the largest greenhouse of flowers in Portugal. They work with us, and we test there is one of the sites where we test our second phase of the upgrade of Coolfarm. And this one that probably is more familiar for vertical farming is Grow Up in London. They always see the second phase of our software, and they gave us feedback. So as you see from the 2 sides, horizontal, typical greenhouse, to the vertical greenhouses, Coolfarm is very flexible in handling different systems.
You can do both?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Inside, so these are LEDs that we are testing now, and here I test different things. So as you see, different stuff are growing around, and I also have the different tests. For example, in this one here, we see watercress, but we see cress from 2 different producers. So we bought seeds or got samples of seeds from seed growers, and we test which ones work and which ones don't. For example, in this here we can see that the problem is not Coolfarm system, is the origin of your seeds.
Wow.
You see?
Can you disclose which ones are from which grower?
I'm not sure it's better.
I'm
not. So here, for example, we have 4 varieties. 2 of them are even from the same variety but from different origins, and as you can see, they produce different results. So for me,
also,
no, these are exactly growing the same way. So for example, in this test, I just wanted to see how the origin of the seeds I buy actually influence my results. So these
what do
2
you use as bottom?
is
What the thing they grow on? What is that?
Oh, this is one. This is a type of cloth that is used in hydroponics. For example, Grow Up has a larger mat.
Yeah.
We are testing with a cloth now because we know that the mats work really well. But I was testing with cloths which are easier to cut.
Yeah.
For example, I can really cut through this so that I can pack in different ways. And I always test if the seeds work well on the materials, on the substrates that we actually work on. For example, if you look here, I think you can see, and you have also, also a small step. Here I have rock wool, for example, and I also grow here and germinate here plants in rock wool or in foam. And I test how they grow and how well they grow. Also not only to test how the system actually handles this, but also to test substrates that actually influence the results or even the origin, like this one.
This is a complete like closed environment
Yes,
system.
yes. This is a full circle closed one. Whatever goes around comes around, literally.
What are all the major parts of it? You know, you have the lights, you have the ventilation, the HVAC.
Yes. We have the ventilation system that is controlled. The LEDs are controlled. We have the camera system that is the visual aspect of Coolfarm that is controlled, and we are now testing it to control by itself. We have the water system that is fully controlled. Outside you will see also the tanks of the water and nutrient system.
And this is just
This one is just an NFT tray system at the moment, but we build it up in a way that we can also change it for ebb and flow if we want. So this is, the way it was built was for us to test. So it's not a full exact scale of how industrial greenhouse, vertical greenhouse would work, because this would be shorter, for example. But it is for us to test, also because it helps with, if we have very big LEDs like this one, these large LEDs, they need more space. If you have Philips or Veloya LEDs, for example, those LEDs are really thin, then you can decrease the size between the layers. So we made it in a way that is flexible for us to change and replicate if necessary. So this one we tested, so at the moment I have testing different origins and different species. I also germinate here, so if we move to the other one, you will see also an NFT kind of system. Yeah. At the moment we chose these two designs because the trays one can be replicated for ebb and flow or a tray NFT. And the NFT is also the most common one for horizontal greenhouses for hydroponics. So we replicate it here.
I've never seen this one.
Well,
You made this yourself, or?
we ordered these ones specifically, but it really, one of the things that we learned with this one is that it really depends on the country where you are, the type of NFT that you get. So it's really funny because in some countries we see a different design or a different size. And one of the things that I also learned with it is it depends on where you ask. So these ones were from a guy that was faster to sell us this, literally. Because we want to start, so if we want to start, we can't wait forever for a material. And that's also a thing I learned with this, is that it depends on where you are, how fast you get the material to start. So, as you see here, we also have cameras. We have
The camera is something special, like Coolfarm, right?
yes. We specifically designed the cameras to actually work as an eye. So you can see the plants with different.
You don't need human eyes to monitor.
No. Actually, this is more specific than that, because what you see with the human eye is not what this camera sees. This camera is actually filtered. They have filters, and they work. Have you ever seen the imagery of satellites for remote sensing? So we use the same sort of principles to work with these sort of cameras. So these cameras are designed to monitor plants, and then because they communicate with the Coolfarm software and all the artificial intelligence system of it, is literally learning how to look at plants and measure the NDVI, for example, which is the most common index for health quality. NDVI is an index.
I've never heard of it. So.
No? Okay, so NDVI is one of the indexes that is used, for example, in remote sensing to measure the greenness of plants. And for example, if you have a nutrient deficiency in plants, you can see it. because the plants, when they start getting less nutrients, they start getting yellower. For example, with nitrogen, they get very yellow. So this actually sees it much faster. When you start seeing yellow and interpreting, okay, this is a nutrient deficiency, this is much more sensitive and sees it a lot earlier than that, because it's measuring the NDVI index, for example. That is one of the indices that we use to monitor that.
And can you also monitor pests or fungi?
At the moment, we are testing for the interpretation of health quality of the plants. Most plants, we hope that the nutrient deficiencies are faster to test, because I can test deficiencies here, so deprive them of food or something like that. With fungi and so on, we are now working on a collaboration with a company called Phytolab in Coimbra. They work on the same grounds as we work there, so we are working in a collaboration with them, because then they can, on a specific way, inject the fungi or contaminate the plants with a specific disease, and then test how the indices work with that. But that is the next step. At the moment, we can tell from if is anything that affects the quality of the leaves of your crops, they should be able to see it. But what it is not yet done. So at the moment, if you have a large greenhouse or 10 floors like Grow Up, we could try and tell you, okay, this, let's say the 6th floor, on that section, there's something wrong. The NDVI, for example, is lower than what it should be, or any other index of health is lower than what it should be, then you know that you should go to that section immediately and see what it is. At the moment, you have to do all the ground checkup. And for a Grow Up, for example, or when you're working with vertical, you have to see every single layer. So with this, you could go faster, because everything is normal, all the trays are normal except that particular section, so you should go there first. It's more of redirection and making your walk efficient to verify how your plants are doing. So this is the first step. The second step is the
company that does this type of cameras, or
there are our competitors are working on video cameras, thermal cameras, but as far as I know, this sort of integration between this sort of remote sensing indexes with artificial intelligence, we are the first. So we hope to be ahead of everyone on that.
That will definitely change the whole industry if you have that.
Yeah.
I was working on the DLR study, the second one in November last year. Actually, you should have been there, not me. And I was doing plant monitoring and health and all. And I was looking and finding cameras that you don't have to go into the greenhouse to find out what's wrong with the plants.
Exactly.
And I tried to find something that I couldn't find. Now, the study can still be finished, so maybe I'm putting in a Coolfarm system.
Yeah. Well, this sort of indices and application for greenhouses and crops is only showing up on the last 3 to 5 years. And I can tell you that because I was doing my PhD on that sort of monitoring systems. And going from the large-scale satellite imagery to very fine-scale, precise measurements is happening now, also because of the capacity of computers and the capacity of engineers to actually run software that handles so much data, because this is a gigantic amount of data to process and send. So we are now on the works of simplifying and give you the information that you need.
This was a computer that was
exactly
as big as a room, and
exactly
now
and now Coolfarm is fitting on mobile phone, so it's not that bad. So as you see, again, we are testing the same LEDs at the moment, seeing how they behave here and on the other side. These LEDs, for example, one of the things that we learn as well is that if you cannot control the amount of photons, you get into troubles on vertical systems. Because these ones, for example, are very strong. So when you're germinating plants is insane. They really don't like it. So they are very, very strong.
And these you can regulate, right? Or
These ones not.
not? Okay.
Not. You cannot dim these ones. The ones that we have outside that we got now from Valoya, you can do the dimming, and that is we are really looking forward because now we can integrate the dimming also on the control system. So let's say you turn on the page of Coolfarm, you see that you want the lights to be on a particular strength, then you just put your settings and that's it. The recipe is I want this with these settings and that's it. And everything else starts working around. I don't touch on any of this. I literally sow the plants and I tweak things so that the system learns how to work with it. Yeah.
This is do-it-yourself, right?
Yes. This was do-it-yourself, fix it at the moment that they start bending.
That's
and
an important lesson. To be handy sometimes.
yeah. Yeah, one of the things that you learn with this is that at the moment, because you don't have any standard of building such stuff, well, specifically, in this case specifically, we are very small, so this had to be on a test site sort of style. But this was a problem of not being able to get a company to come in and install, so we have to do it ourselves. If you do a small lab and not having 2 hectares of it, suddenly you're not a priority of anybody.
That makes sense.
So at the moment we are waiting for the, I don't know what you call it, the bar, let's say, to put it. Well, I want, at least I want to make it shorter because I'm very clumsy. So I'm really waiting for the day that I'm here just picking up plants and switching plants around, and I will knock this over and there is a disaster. So I normally tend to be very clumsy, so I avoid this sort of stuff. Here we also have, well, on the other side we also have it, but here we have sensors of temperature, humidity, and CO2.
And that's a Coolfarm system?
Yes. This is a Wi-Fi design system. So this is not plugged. This is communicating with the box directly via Wi-Fi. And vertical systems really like this. Horizontals also like it because you can put more than one and you can put it where you think is more sensitive for you to control the temperature and humidity.
Velcro on the...
Yeah, we just put it with Velcro in this one.
It's easy.
Also because then I can change it around, and for me it's also because then I can test different prototypes of it. Of course that whenever you get one you will have the applied hanging proper thing. I get the prototype stuff. But the cool thing of this is that you can put it where you think is more sensitive. So I have one here, but if I would imagine I would change the system, I would put it somewhere else.
Can I ask, the holes are for the air
Is
to
the
go
chamber,
in,
yeah.
and the humidity to...
Yeah, is the chamber to make the air flow and you get the humidity very precisely. So, for example...
Inside is engineering, the outside is design.
Exactly. Yes, designers always looking at this and say, no, that doesn't look nice.
That's how...
Yeah.
You told me we have engineers and designers.
Yes.
And the team.
Yeah.
Different views, but together they
Yeah.
perfectly.
Yeah, because, for example, to build this one, Gonçalo puts everything together, builds the inside, and then gives it to the design team and says, well, it has to fit. And then we test different prototypes of how it works precisely. Comes here, I test it to see how well it measures and how well it functions. And then from there, if it is properly functioning and communicating with Coolfarm, then it goes to our beta sites, is tested there, and then from there, it's final launch. Yeah. So these ones, for example, are the same as they are in London at the moment. And for example, Grow Up has 10 levels, and for them it's already handy because they have it on the lowest floor, halfway, and on the top, and you can see almost a difference of 1.5 degrees. And humidity as well. So you see the layers vary on that. So if you're controlling the entire system as one single unit, you might get into trouble on different layers. And this can tell you different layers have different needs. Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I talked to some experts and they say you just need for the whole facility, you just need one.
No.
Every layer is different.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Now you give me the idea. I should write a white paper about it. I will ask Tom if I can do that, because with this, I can tell you already that if we would look, for example, on the other side where I show you 2 levels, just between one level and the other, you see some differences. Are they relevant? I think it depends on what you choose to grow. But in 10 levels, so in 5 meters high, you will see differences. And you will see quite large differences. So if you choose one spot and is the wrong spot of your greenhouse to measure, you might get into troubles. Yeah, and in large greenhouses, for example, I do not understand why a 2-hectare greenhouse only has one of these, and in a corner or just in the center of the greenhouse. It does not give you the entire picture of the greenhouse, because you will see that there are some hot spots and some, let's say, dark spots where you need to fix the system and tweak the system to work.
Is this an expensive box?
No. The idea is that actually you can have more than one. So we build them in a way that you can have. I think that our package at the moment includes, I don't want to be mistaken, but I think it includes 5 of these and 2 cameras with the entire system, so that you can at least choose 2 sections that you can see properly and you have an indication. And then if you want more cameras and you like the system at the moment, you can order more. This entire package goes as a whole at the moment, so that everything communicates with Coolfarm, but you get more than one. And the idea is that farmers, if they feel that they want more, they can have more, because it's not as expensive, especially on a high-tech greenhouse. This is definitely not the... No, not at all. Not at all. So, as you can see, we have 2 different labs with 2 different systems that I generally switch and tweak. And here we show 2 examples of 2 of our partners where you can, they don't close enough, to show you how flexible the system can work. And in our case, we have the brain inside. Yeah.
Coolfarm brain.
Exactly. Normally you have 2 boxes for redundancy, but at the moment we don't have one of the boxes. It's only running with one.
What is this then exactly? I didn't know. This is computer hardware?
Oh yes. This is in the entire computer. Yeah.
So it measures everything and takes up all the data.
Yeah. So we have an industrial computer here that actually controls and communicates with every single aspect of the entire system.
Every farm should actually have this.
Every farm that has this or that has ours will have at least 2 computers, just for redundancy. So even if one would break down, the other one would take over. Okay. So it will never be a problem of if you have a machine and it breaks down, that the entire greenhouse will shut down. You will not have that. The idea is that if one would break down, which, for example, in this one, it doesn't break. It has been here since the beginning. And we're switching for the other one that is not here is being switched for an upgraded version. The engineers want to test something out, so they took it out and they are putting something together to put it in again. But the idea is that you have 2 of these. So as you see, this one is controlling these 2 tiny greenhouses, or labs, as we call them. But this one will control any type of greenhouse, because this is an industrial computer inside.
If you have 20 small labs, this can also...
Yes. Because the part that actually control, this is computer with all the data, and then comes the part of the software design, where everything is put together in one single page. So at the moment you would log into the Coolfarm system, you would see all your greenhouses, all your sections. Everything you have connected, you will see it. Yeah. So wherever you are in the world. Actually, I have, as you see, a substitute phone, but Gonçalo can show you on his phone our software, because you can see all the greenhouses. I normally see it on my phone or in my computer if I'm in the office, but wherever I am in the world, I have access to the information of this system. So yeah, in beginning of September, I was visiting Grow Up, and I was there for 2 weeks, and I was there, and once in a while I would pick my phone and just check if everything was okay. Yeah. Well, I knew that I didn't need to check it exactly, because the system notifies me if something is wrong.
It's like your baby, so you just...
Exactly. I just want to see how it's going. It's quite addictive. I just want to see how it's going. Although I didn't have any notification saying that something is wrong. I know that there's nothing wrong, but I just go and check it and see how is it.
Makes sense. I know what you mean. I don't have my greenhouse, but I have certain things I just want to see.
Exactly. Yeah. So I do that quite a lot, and just for curiosity of how it's going. And also once in a while I change the recipes. And because I change the recipes, I just want to see how it flows, and if it's doing what I wanted. Because I test all sorts of tweaks, and once in a while I decide to actually starve my plants and stuff like that. So then it's like you're getting. Well, I normally tell people that. I normally tell people like I kill some plants once in a while so that you don't have to. Is that sort of. But yeah, the idea is that if I stress them here and I teach the system here, then whatever happens all over the world, the brain would actually see it and identify it. Yeah. So, for example, at the moment, we are testing in Coimbra a nutrient deficiency, and because we're testing the nutrient deficiency, the idea is that the system then will get the numbers and identify. Okay, if this is a nutrient deficiency, when I see it in some other greenhouse, I will know what it is and will notify me immediately.
Is it also a bit what MIT, what Caleb Harper is doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you have any connections with those guys, or
no?
We've only heard a lot of TED Talks, for example. But
yeah.
It's nothing.
Well, the idea, how to see it, is that now everything is is starting. So all the tests are being done, things are working out, you're synchronizing a lot of information. But at the moment, as far as I know, we are one of the few that are actually doing it for a commercial purpose already. We know that, for example, MIT is doing quite a lot on testing a lot of stuff at the same time and developing a really large data set before. What we are working in is something more practical with collaborators of beta sites and people that are already growing and producing. And we are getting their feedback to see how this needs to move forward faster. So it's a different strategy. We will see. But at the moment, I think that the strategy of everyone is to synchronize things as much as possible and definitely to work on a phone.
Yeah.
Yes.
I also talked to Gonçalo about the fact that we have a project group at the AVF that works on plant recipe standardization.
Exactly. I want to talk with you about that.
Yeah. So I already put it on my to-do list to connect you with the group. So.
Yeah, because that is one of the things that I do here. I built some recipes, but you have two different ways of seeing the Kikvors system. Mm-hmm. If you are a person that you don't mind and you want to share your recipes and you want to get feedback and have a fast learning curve of the results you might get, then you can share your recipe. So that then what it would be is that you're growing your plants, data is being put here, everything is being analyzed and put together to build a consistent recipe for everyone that works better. For somebody that is doing a specific recipe, their own specific stuff, and they don't want to share it, they want that, then they have a system apart. They have their own. So it grows and it tests and it learns on that specific area. So you have these two types of people that can use Coolfarm on different ways.
Yeah.
So is as you prefer.
But even in both ways, it would be good to have like a specific standardization for the plant recipes.
What we are working on this first phase, for example, if you would buy Coolfarm right now, what you have is the capacity of writing your own recipes immediately. So you can put on the recipes. That's one thing that it works well with Coolfarm at the moment, is that you don't say that you don't go to the pumps and you say this flow, this whatever. You go and you say, I want this watering cycle, I want this EC, I want this pH, I want this. And the recipe is set up and sent to the computer, and the computer will see whatever you have on your system and communicates with the pumps and starts working their own schedule, working their own...
it's like translating what
exactly. So everything is translated to engineering, communication stuff. At the moment it works this way. The idea is that on a second step, and that's why, for example, I was curious to talk with you guys as well, is that the second step would be that if you don't know, if you want to try a new variety, and the variety is already in the market, if there is a recipe available, then you could go to this sort of recipe library and choose it, and say, I want to start this greenhouse with that particular one, and that is the second step. Yeah. So now to start, and for our beta sites actually to work with us, the recipe immediately you can build your own is already there. This sort of library will come later. It depends on how fast I am and how fast people are in sharing this sort of information.
Like 80,000 edible plants, if I'm
exactly.
not mistaken.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big library, probably.
The idea of having both is that if you have very common varieties that already are in the market, everybody already knows how they are growing, then you can immediately start. You already have this sort of first step moving forward. If it is a new variety, then you can have the possibility of building your own recipe. Because if you would depend only on a library and there's new variety showing up all the time, then it's a limitation because you don't have access to information that you don't know yet. You don't know how it grows. So also we are working on that aspect of having the capacity of handling both. If you have a library of already standard recipes that everybody knows this already works, then you can start with that one. Yeah, I hope it's cool.
It's good.
I hope people like it.
And the last question was like, if there was one thing you could teach one of these inspiring vertical farmers, what would it be? Like philosophical or something very technical?
No, actually, yeah, I would go for a more technical one. I would definitely suggest people to find the right partners. Be careful with the partners you choose to build your own greenhouses. Especially because there are a lot of companies that work on this, but they work separate from each other, and once in a while the systems don't actually go together. So you will get into troubles if you decide to put together bits and pieces and make it your own, because then the problem is that sometimes you will have more troubles in the short term than actually a working greenhouse. So it's not always good to go too fast. Do your research and build it properly with the right partners is definitely the best. Yeah.
Do you like it? It's not really a greenhouse, but
It's a kind of greenhouse.
it's kind of, yeah, we call it the labs. Okay, so this is a Coolfarm. This is the actual product. This is a Coolfarm brand. Like Sabrina said, we usually have 2 or 3 so that the boxes work in a cluster. So basically, you have sort of your mini cloud inside your farm. So it operates at the software level as a cloud would work, so that you have the same kind of high availability and redundancy that you would find in an online hosting service. The reason we need so much care with what's running locally is because although Coolfarm is a cloud-based system, we require it to operate normally even if your internet connection is down. So this means that Coolfarm, part of the artificial intelligence modules actually run inside the farm. All of your controllers, notification models, data loggers, everything runs locally. So this means that if you're out of internet connection, everything operates normally. So obviously we also have a switch here. We always prefer hardware that we can connect to Coolfarm using an Ethernet-based protocol. And obviously we have the UPS to make sure that...
what is a UPS?
UPS, it's basically a battery that allows the system to keep running even if your electricity is down.
It's like a backup generator with an...
Exactly. And we have all the sensors hooked up to the UPS, also the Coolfarm. So even if you cannot water your plants or the LEDs go off or the pumps, you still know what's happening inside the farm. And that allows you to know what to do next when the power comes back. So you know how long the plants were without water or without light, stuff like that. So if we look here in the back, so we have the PoE module back here to power the cameras. So the Coolfarm eyes run on a PoE line, which means that both communication and power go through the same line. So we don't have multiple cables going to the camera, so it's cleaner. Mm-hmm. And back here, as you can see, the box is connected to the switch, so we can interface to all of the to all of the Ethernet-based modules. And we also have an RS485 connector plugged into one of the 3 connectors in the back of the box. Mm-hmm. Although we prefer Ethernet-based hardware, in this case we installed the dosing pumps that run on RS485, so they are using Modbus RTU to do the communication. And this is just to showcase what the Coolfarm can do in terms of multiple protocols. Yeah. So in terms of hardware, you can pretty much connect whatever you want to Coolfarm. It's a distributed system, which means that everything runs on the network.
Question. Can I
go ahead.
Connect my PlayStation?
We could, yeah, we could definitely do that.
I don't have one anymore. Just a question.
Although I don't think, I mean, if the farm manager would be very happy with that. But the point here is that we can, I mean, this is an industrial grade computer, so you can literally plug in whatever you want. So imagine that you buy a new laptop, you can buy an Epson printer or an HP printer and install the hardware drivers for that printer in your computer. And it doesn't matter if you're printing from Word or from your browser, you always have the same experience while printing. And Coolfarm does the same thing for the farming industry. So it doesn't matter the brand of your pH sensor, a pH sensor is always going to give you a pH value. And so the Coolfarm is prepared to integrate with all kinds of sensing and actuator technologies. So and we're going to see that later, if you have a kind of device that does not have connectivity, so for example a valve, we can interface it using an adapter or an I/O module, which is what we did here in the labs. And so the concept is that as your farm becomes more complex, we can add more boxes to the cluster so that we can run more software. But the cluster doesn't necessarily grow with the size of your farm, but the network does. And so if you have a smaller warehouse right now and you want to make it bigger in the next year, you can do it without having to change your Coolfarm. You just need to add more cabling, more sensors. So it's something that grows with you. You can invest more in the future if you want, or simply if you want to change the hardware, you're not happy with it, you can change it and you can always keep the same software running in the background. So making the software for Coolfarm or setting it up is like building a Lego. So you have different modules, for example, controllers, data loggers, notifications, and you can just stack them up as you see fit. So for example, here, obviously we have a pH sensor in the water, and we can attach a data logger to that pH sensor, which is going to push data to the cloud, and then you can see it on the dashboard. Obviously, you can also add a notifications module, so you can get notifications whenever your pH is out of bounds. And obviously, we also have a pH pump here or an acid pump to inject acid into the water to regulate the pH. So we can add a pH controller in the middle to connect the sensor to the actuator. So everything is really flexible. And that's why Coolfarm is so interesting for the vertical warehouse market, because you can apply it to different topologies of farms, not just the traditional greenhouse. And we have a lot of customers coming from different areas, for example, growing microalgae, for example, or even oysters near the sea, which the same principles apply basically.
They also do mushrooms probably.
Yeah, we never tried it, but yeah, perfectly possible. Yeah, definitely. So back here we have the dosing units. We could definitely go for a fertigation machine. We chose the intelligent dosing pumps from Grundfos. So they are all connected in daisy chain using an RS485 connection directly to the Coolfarm brain. So these are smart pumps. So Coolfarm actually talks to them and tells them how much nutrients Coolfarm wants to put in the water, and the pumps take care of everything. They also tell us when the tanks are running out of nutrients, or I don't know, so how much power they're consuming. So this is the kind of solution that we like to integrate with Coolfarm because it makes... Yeah, this one is almost empty, yeah. So for example, in this case, it's a simple hydroponic setup. So we are using a 3-part solution plus the acid container. So we have 4 dosing pumps. They are equipped with mixers so that we can mix them before we do the watering. But everything here is pretty standard. So moving back here on the wall, we have our sensors. We are currently sourcing Hauser sensors. It's a German company. It's a very high-end sensor, so these are more expensive than you typically find in a greenhouse. You have here the pH sensor, which also doubles as an ORP pump, sensor. We have the EC sensor and the dissolved oxygen. All of them also measure temperature. This is the analyzer, which gathers all the sensor data. And then the data is sent to Coolfarm using an Ethernet connection.
And you guys all developed this?
No, this is from a German company.
Okay.
Yes.
But you just integrated with the Coolfarm?
Yes, so we always try to, obviously, I mean, you can choose whatever hardware you want, so we don't directly produce anything that you see back here. This is just an example of a possible setup, but we always advise people to install high-end smart pumps, smart sensors, so that the system is more integrated and it's easier to use. So for example, if you have any problems, you can just come here to the console, you can see the data instantly from the sensor. You can also use the console to calibrate the sensor. These are smart sensors, so for example, even if you unplug the sensor to calibrate it or clean it, it will send you a notification. So right now, my system is going crazy because I unplugged it. Okay, no alarm came because obviously the system is not watering right now, so it doesn't use this resource. But if it needed, we would get a notification on the phone, on the dashboard, everything. So for example, in here we have the pH sensor. So this is connected using the hardware drivers from the Hendra sensor to the box. And then there is a controller module that is attaching that to the dosing unit that is dosing the acid into the water. So Coolfarm is literally measuring the pH in the water. We're using what we call smart controllers. So it's basically a machine learning based controller. Traditionally, you would have to fine-tune your controller to control your process. In this case, controlling pH in water is very difficult because it's a highly nonlinear process, which means that basically when you fine-tune the controller, if something changes, for example, the water from your well is a little bit different, or you change the concentration of the acid, it's going to screw up your controller. And what we did was we used smart controller technologies for all of our controllers, and this means that they actually learn what you're controlling and they don't need to be tuned. So they are literally acquiring data from the sensors, seeing how the system is reacting. It's making a mathematical model of how the pH is changing in the water, for example, in this case, and it's learning how much acid it needs to pump into the water to achieve the correct pH. And we do this, for example, also for the nutrients, for temperature, air, humidity. So we always use this kind of controllers. Obviously, once again, if you had another system already installed, for example, a fertigation machine that already does this, you would need to use our controllers. You could just use the controllers inside the fertigation machine, and the Coolfarm would just send the pH and the EC values to the fertigation machine. So once again, very flexible. So here we have basically the electrical board for the whole installation. This is quite a small installation, so there's not a lot to see here. But everything is pretty standard. The interesting thing here is that everything from the LEDs, which are on-off in this case, or the valves, or some of the analog sensors are connected to this OTB module. So basically this is an I/O module. It can read or write to digital or analog ports, and it converts these signals into an Ethernet connection so that Coolfarm can read it. So for example, if we had a large greenhouse or a warehouse where we had multiple valves or other kind of hardware, electrical hardware that could not interface directly to Coolfarm, we use something like this to connect it to the back of the box. a lot of people have this question like, how do I connect my valves to my Coolfarm if it only has Ethernet or RS-485 ports? And this is how we do it.
Makes sense.
So everything else in here is just, I know, relays, switches, stuff like that. So everything's pretty standard.
Well, if you know about it, it's standard.
No, I mean, there's nothing new in here. So if we move back here, we have some other cool sensors we keep here. So because we have two different labs, we wanted to keep two different water tanks. So this is not your traditional hydroponic setup. This is not, it's not very orthodox, I would say. We did it so that we could have two tanks with two different level of ECs. So for example, here we're doing germination, so very low EC. If we look into this tank, the water is much darker because it's loaded with nutrients, as you can see. And if we look into this other tank, this is just for germination and microgreens and stuff like that. So, so the water is much cleaner.
Yeah.
Inside we have also a bunch of sensors that maybe we don't need for operation this size, but just to exemplify. So we have the level sensors on each tank, which allows us to measure the actual level of the tank. Then we have the switches to see when the water reached the maximum and the minimum. This is all used to generate notifications, for example, if something is wrong. Also, we are using water from the tanks to water the plants, so obviously we are losing water over time. So Coolfarm is injecting water automatically in the tank when we need it, so everything is completely automatic. The only thing that we intervene here is whenever Sabrina needs to put more seeds, or harvest the plants, or put some nutrients into the cubes, stuff like that. So the way this works right here, Coolfarm is opening the valves from either tank, depending on what you're watering.
Well, you don't need it to. You can do it manually, but you do also do it.
No, we never do anything manually here. But yeah.
This one is manual, right?
Oh, no, that is a security valve.
Ah,
I mean, for example, if something is wrong, you can just close it right here, and that's it.
Okay.
It's just for security.
Yeah.
So, whoops. Oh, okay.
If technology fails, there's still.
Yes, exactly.
human.
I mean, that's always a good idea. So basically, Coolfarm will open the valve, the water will go to the pump. It's also an Ethernet-based pump, so it's connected all to the switch. So the water goes through the filter. Then here we have the injection ports for the nutrients and the acid. Everything is mixed along this length. Where we have the flow meter to measure the amount of water that we are pumping into the plants, because different sections have different watering requirements, and this is how we control it. And then this is basically the sampling point for the sensor, so that you can measure what's going into the plants, and it's how we also control the pumps. And then basically the water is going inside the greenhouse, or the labs, as we call them. And everything is done automatically. So for example, whenever I want to water this greenhouse, I don't care which valves I want to open. Coolfarm knows exactly which valves it needs to open to make a path for my water to reach my plants. It knows it needs to give a determinate amount of flow so that I can give enough water to the amount of sections that I'm watering, depending on the number of benches that I'm watering. So this is all managed by the Coolfarm. All of the sensors that we have here come from the same German manufacturer, which we're working with. We have a dealership with them in terms of maintenance. So for example, if you buy a Coolfarm kit that comes with the sensors, they will provide the human resources to do all the maintenance in the sensors, cleaning, which is very important. I mean, we would never source sensors if we could not provide the manpower to give you an assistance in the field if that is required, because obviously, I mean, a controller is something that is not easily going to break down, or the software on the cloud is very easy to fix or to update. But if your sensor needs to be calibrated, or if you need a new tip for the sensor, that is something that we need to be able to solve in a matter of hours, not days or weeks. We currently, in terms of hardware, we don't have any specific dealings with anyone. I mean, we have Grundfos here because we believe their pumps are great, but we don't necessarily endorse them or have any dealership with them or anything like that. But even though we work with Andres Hauser, and that's what we're showcasing here, the client is perfectly free to choose whatever sensor brands they want. So like the printer example, you can choose your brand and it just works. That's what it makes it so cool. So I don't know if you want to go take a look at the dashboard to see how the software works.
Oh yeah.
So right now we have our dashboard online, so it's live. We have a bunch of clients working on it, using it in alpha and beta testing. We are also launching 2 new mobile apps so that you can also run the software natively on your iPhone and Android. The Android app is actually finished. The iOS will be available later this month. The mobile app allows you to have a more seamless integration with your mobile experience. You get the push notifications, which people love. Obviously, knowing what's happening in your farm when you're away is very important. And a lot of customers are not really happy with getting taxes and stuff like that. They want to get a more seamless integration into their mobile experience. So I don't know if you want to sit in the company of these beautiful lettuces.
It's the perfect background for.
Okay, so basically what we have here is our dashboard. So you can see all your farms from all over the world. Right now we're seeing greenhouse 1 and 2 here from the labs, and we also have this third one which belongs to Improplan, which is our test site at the university. So these 2 are right here behind us, and the other one is in Coimbra, where we have our development team.
Improplan.
Exactly. So basically the goal is that when you log in, you can see all your greenhouses at a glance, or farms or warehouses, and see what's happening. Also, for example, I logged into coolfarm.coolfarm.info. This means that I'm logging into our Coolfarm account. If, for example, you had an AVF account, that would be avf.coolfarm.info. And this means that all client data is segmented from account to account, which means that you will never get the same or different clients' data that goes to the cloud will never be mixed in the same database. So everything is completely segmented, and this is very important for our clients because data security, data ownership is very important for farmers these days, because the way they grow their plants is their IP, so that's our biggest concern. So when you go inside a greenhouse, okay, let me go to the other one. So you can see our indoors environment. Obviously, we don't have weather forecast or weather station here because this is an indoors farm. When you go into a watering section, you can actually see the data regarding the nutrients, the pH, temperature of the water. You can still get the indoors environment data, and obviously you can see all the graphics for everything that is happening. So let me end this. So for example, here we can see all the watering cycles that we had for the past few hours. We can play around with the graphics. We can export them. I don't know, whatever you can think of. So here you get all your analytics. There are some stuff that is missing here because we don't have all the sensors installed here, for example. But this is fully customizable, so you can change your user experience depending on the data that is more important for you, depending on what you want to see and how you want to see it. Obviously, regarding a farm, it's also very important to manage your team, so you can give access to different people to your farm, and you can change whether they have access to your recipes, to your data, if they can actually do something or just see what's happening. So this is very important so that you can keep track of your team and what you're doing. Then we also something that is really exciting for us, which is the recipes module, and this is how you actually interface to Coolfarm. This is how you tell Coolfarm to do something. So I'm going to try not to screw up anything so that Sabrina is not mad at me. But basically here you can see all the recipes in your farm at a glance. So right now we have four recipes just for demo purposes. The green ones are the ones that are being used. So this is the one that you have for that other greenhouse, and this is one for the first greenhouse that is running the microgreens. So you can see all the setup for your greenhouse, all the parameters that you have running inside the greenhouse, and you can see this is all high-level parameters that the farmer can understand and can relate to. So all the recipes are company-wide. So if you have a really large company with multiple greenhouses, you have sort of your recipe book that you can create, for example, in one place and then ship them out to other places for consumption. Or, for example, you can have a consultancy agency that looks at your data and helps you teach your recipes, and then you can apply them at your growth sites.
You could also like sell your recipes at one point.
For example, yeah.
Or make a plant factory recipe book and
something like that. Yeah, definitely. So when you create a recipe, this is very simple. You basically select the parameters that you want to be active in your greenhouse. So for example, different plants or different greenhouses or farms have different hardware installed. So for example, you might not care about the CO2 levels if you don't have CO2 sensors, or you might want to add it to the recipe because some of your farms have them installed. So you can select the parameters that you want to control. So this is pretty basic stuff. So my recipe, some notes. You can control the light cycle. So this is something that we're currently working on to actually make this more interesting so that we can incorporate the new LED technology where you can actually control more than just the on and off time of the LEDs. If you were working in a greenhouse, you obviously would not control actively the light cycle. This is something that is controlled by the sun, obviously. Then we also have different parameters for controlling your watering cycle depending on the type of greenhouse that you have. You can add nutrients for your recipe. So for example, in this case, Coolfarm knows that I'm using these 3 recipes. So I'm going to select 2 of them just for the demo.
There's quite a lot to a plant recipe, is there?
Yes. Okay, so we're going to add some nutrients for my recipe. And then here I have all the parameters that I chose in the beginning. So I have my temperature, humidity, and CO2 levels for the day. And then I have the same for the night because obviously plants have different cycles for night and day. If you don't need it, you can just stick to the day, for example. Then we have here the water specifications, for example, the temperature of the water, the pH. And as you can see, all of the values have a 5-value system. So how does this work? The green value is the value for the controller. So for example, if I'm telling Coolfarm that I want a pH of 6, it's going to tell my controller that I want it to keep the pH at 6. Now the yellow values tell Coolfarm that this is the values that it can fluctuate within without danger to my plant or without me having to know anything about it. So it's not going to notify me if it goes, if it changes within these bounds. If it goes beyond the yellow bound, you're going to get a yellow notification, which means that something is not working properly. If you go beyond the red value, either top or bottom, it means that something is terribly wrong, and this is not supposed to happen. Now, obviously, if you have a controller running, you're not supposed to get a notification. But imagine that you have a CO2 sensor, but you don't have CO2 injectors. Then you can activate the notifications, and you will know when your CO2 is out of bounds, although there's nothing you can do about it. Or imagine that you apply a recipe with the CO2 value with a greenhouse that has no CO2 sensors, and Coolfarm is going to ignore that setting. But if you apply it to a greenhouse with CO2 sensors, and it's going to measure it, it's going to log it, it's going to give you notifications. And if you add CO2 injectors to the mix, it's also going to control it. So as you can see, this is a very high-level concept for managing your farm. For example, Coolfarm right now it's watering our plants. And this is how the farmer relates to the farm and is able to tell Coolfarm what he wants to do with these plants. So as you can see, there is no information here whatsoever regarding which pumps to open, which valves, the settings for the controllers. Everything is done automatically by the system using artificial intelligence. And this is how the farmer communicates what it wants to achieve to the Coolfarm, using a simple, elegant interface of what it wants to happen in terms of recipes. Now, obviously, this is not as simple as it looks like. Sometimes you will have multiple recipes in the same farm, and Coolfarm will have to mix them up and achieve a point where all the plants are happy, or even notify you when you're trying to grow, for example, bananas with lettuces, and it's completely different, and it's just not possible to achieve the same environment in the same greenhouse. Or sometimes it's possible. You're growing a bunch of microgreens that are different, but they can live in the same environments. And so Coolfarm is going to find a middle term, a middle ground using your recipes, and it's going to help you grow your plants in the most effective way.
Yeah, I've met recently 2 farmers who have a big diversity of crops. Like one of them.
It's perfectly possible. Yeah. Then moving on, we also have here the kits where you are able to actually, we're changing this, we're calling it hardware. It's just plainer and simpler. So basically this is where you can see the hardware installations. So as you can see, we have one here in Torres Novas where we are right now, and we have another one in Improplan in the university. So it shows you the hardware that you have installed. And this is, for example, where you go if you want to open a valve manually or make a pump move manually to do maintenance or whatever. This is where you go. And we have some more maintenance stuff, like, for example, the nutrients that we're using in our facilities. We can create new nutrients. We give it the concentrations and everything so that Coolfarm knows what's using. This is very important for us because Coolfarm is doing machine learning on the cloud of how the plants are growing. So it's literally learning how your plants are growing. So it's very important for us to know which nutrients you're giving your plants, what's in the composition, and how they're growing in relation to what you're using. So once again, we have the team management, we have the activity log, you can see who's doing what, so you can see who logged in. For example, I logged in, obviously. So who's messing around with the recipes, who's changing the pH value of my farm, who did what. So very important.
I'm changing the pH value.
For accountability, yeah. So apart
so you can fire me.
Yes, definitely. So apart from this, we also have a local version of the dashboard. So if you run out of internet, you can also take a look at this locally. And we also have the mobile version. So you also have your apps for Android and iOS.
Oh, yeah.
Also, let me see if I can connect to those. You can also connect to your cameras locally. So although the Coolfarm Eye is a smart camera, so it's pushing data to the cloud regarding how your plants are growing. So this means plant size, plant growth rate, and plant health in the format NDVI, which I think Sabrina explained to you earlier. Now,
if I still remember, of course.
This is all very interesting, but obviously it's also very important for the farmer to be able to interact with the camera more closely if they need to see the actual pictures.
This is an actual picture.
So this is an actual picture from the camera, so you can see it in the web server. This is still not finished, so the designers would kill me if I was showing this to anyone. So this is still the rough version of the software. I know it looks really cool for me, but somehow the designers think it looks really crappy. So some of the design is still not finished. But the point is that you can have a local interface with the camera so that you can see the pictures. Obviously, we're not pushing pictures to the cloud because we are using high resolution cameras for extracting the information of the plants. So we can go to the detail, and this would be very heavy on the database. But we still want the client to be able to look at the pictures if they want. I mean, to tweak you can configure your camera so you can change all the settings yourself. So this is very important. I mean, if you want to change a camera from one place to another, you can just tell Coolfarm where you're putting it, and it will update the settings. If you need to calibrate something, if you're changing the type of plants, you need to tweak the calibration of something, you can do it yourself. You don't need anyone to do it for you. So it's supposed to be very intuitive. I mean, it's a Coolfarm product, so it should be as easy and intuitive to use as anything else in the Coolfarm product line. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think I've covered all the software and the hardware. I don't know, do you have any questions regarding engineering?
Question, the last question I'm going to ask you. What would you teach every new urban or vertical farmer or someone who wants to get into it?
I think the most important thing is to plan ahead. I think it's very important for you to know who you're selling your products to. I think it's very easy for us to get caught up in all the technicalities like the hardware I'm going to choose, the LEDs, the areas, but is it profitable? I mean, have you really did your numbers? Did you find partners to sell your products to? I mean, what are they going to buy from you? Is it lettuce? Is it microgreens? Is it mixed salads? I think the first thing is to know who's going to buy your products, what you're interested in, what are the volumes, and that will dictate the technology, the area, and everything else that you're going to build. It's going to grow on that basis. So I think that's very important. Obviously, you don't have to marry the first person you meet. Obviously, I mean you're not getting a distributor for life or anything like that. But you should definitely know what you're selling. Obviously, you don't need to get a distributor. You could sell your own stuff. You could also have your own shop integrated into your warehouse or whatever. But I think it's very important to know your markets. And I think a lot of people failing in that regard. They start planning the size of the warehouse, the brand of LEDs, the controller, the sensors, and they still have no idea what you're going to grow, who's going to buy the products, and I think that should be the first step.